which players should you be reaching for in your fantasy leagues? Welcome, football fans, fantasy freaks. It's Mitch here with the players that you should reach for in your fantasy drafts. These are the players that I believe are values that are going too late, that I like so much that I'd be willing to reach for them. So we're going to go over each position, each player. I'm going to let you know who I would pick them over and where I would pick them in your fantasy drafts. If that sounds good, like the video and don't forget to subscribe to my new fantasy and NFL betting channel here, Money Mitch. Let's go. Let's begin with the wide receiver position. And when we're talking ADP, we're talking consensus ADP across all platforms. The first player that I'm willing to reach for in all fantasy drafts, in all formats, is Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver 1 for Bryce Young and the wide receiver 1 of the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers made a choice in the draft. They made a choice to go with offense in the first round. And why that's important is because the Carolina Panthers, many fantasy experts, analysts, they won't tell you about this. But because I cover the entire NFL and all 32 teams, I know this. The Panthers had maybe the worst defense of all time last year. It was really that bad. So for them to make the choice to select a receiver in the top 10 of the draft instead of a pass rusher or any impactful defender in a good defensive class speaks volumes to what they think of T-Mac and speaks volumes to the direction of the offense. They're going to funnel this guy the ball, especially after trading Adam Thielen, which just happened yesterday. So not only is he right away shining in camp, burning Derek Stingley at practice, right? Joint practices with the Houston Texans, an elite corner, going toe-to-toe with the best of the best, putting on a show in the preseason with Bryce Young. Not only is he a top 10 pick, not only was he a superstar at Arizona with the size, with the speed to get downfield, to play inside, outside, slot, perimeter, but he's a player that they chose instead of helping the worst defense in football. That's a big deal. So, and this is also a guy that he goes 63rd in typical drafts based on consensus. In high stakes leagues, on underdog, he goes near 35, 38, within that 35 to 40 range. That is the difference. Near 30 picks in difference. I would actually pick T-Mac straight up over Marvin Harrison Jr., who is the consensus 41st overall player. That is a difference of 22 picks. Now be smart with all of these selections. Don't just reach to reach. Play the board, understand who you're playing with, what your league is like, what the format's like, how many receivers do you need to start, 2, 3, 4. Understand that. But at the end of the day, I'm willing to reach multiple rounds for this player because I think he has a realistic chance of being a top 12 receiver as a rookie. We saw Brian Thomas do it. We saw Malik Neighbors do it just last year. Ladd McConkey had a great season. There's no reason, given the rise of Bryce Young this year, the offensive line, the infrastructure, Canales calling plays, wanting him to be his Mike Evans, the number 2 receiver being Leggett or Coker, like this guy is going to be a great fantasy pick. So I love him in drafts this year, especially if he's my wide receiver 2 or 3. Next, George Pickens. Now, George Pickens is the classic case of a wide receiver 2, in quotations, going too late. Because people fundamentally misunderstand what a wide receiver 2 means. It's the same reason I think we undervalue a name like T. Higgins. George Pickens goes 62nd in drafts. I would pick him over a number one clear alpha wide receiver like DK Metcalf at 51. Why? The difference in infrastructure, the difference in the offense, the pace of the offense, and the amount of volume in the passing game. The Dallas Cowboys have no running game. They don't like their running backs. That's pretty clear. They didn't even really want a running back. They moved on from Rico Dowdle. What did they do? They re-signed Jake Ferguson, and they traded for George Pickens. And they're paying Dak Prescott the most money at the quarterback position. They're going to throw the rock a ridiculous amount. So, yes, he's a number 2 target. But he's never been a number 2 where there's been another receiver to take the attention from defenses. And we've seen Pickens lead the NFL in yards per reception. We've seen George Pickens have 1,000 yards. We've seen George Pickens be a legitimate deep threat, a contested catch artist. He has so much talent, right? And it does feel like in Dallas, he's been very good at practice. He's been very consistent. There's been very little drama concerning Pickens. Maybe it's all going towards Parsons, but he could have a huge year. Like, this is the type of wide receiver 2 that could have a wide receiver 1 in fantasy season. He's a 10 touchdown kind of guy, right? This is an offense before that has put up some great receiver numbers. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb were able to coexist. I don't know why not George Pickens can't be a great value where he's being picked at 62. And honestly, I'd take him over a number of receivers going ahead of him. An example being DK Metcalf at 51, because DK, he's in an offense where it's run heavy. It's going to play a lot of tight ends. It's a shaky quarterback position, an older Aaron Rodgers, right? A bad offensive line. The Cowboys are going to have to score. They're going to have to throw the ball. And Dak Prescott is going to have to, they're going to have to get the money's worth out of Dak Prescott. So get your money's worth out of George Pickens. The next receiver is Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, I'm just going to be like as simple as I can be with this one. He goes 73rd off the board. Travis Hunter is one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in college history. College football, college lacrosse, college basketball, college hockey, college badminton. It doesn't really matter, right? We've seen Travis Hunter. He is a specimen. He is a great athlete. And I'm just willing to bet on potentially the cheapest we'll ever get Travis Hunter in his entire career. And you think about the situation, right? This is a Liam Cohen offense that loves to utilize the slot receiver. What did we see last year from Chris Godwin in Tampa Bay? He was literally leading the NFL in receptions before he got injured. Now, maybe that's the reason he got injured, but at the same time, Travis Hunter is gifted. Travis Hunter is great after the catch. He is great with the ball in the air, right? I don't think people truly know how good of a receiver he is. He is the best receiver from this class, and you can get him 73rd in your fantasy drafts. That's just far too low, in my opinion, on what I expect to be a much improved offense. And yes, he's the number 2 target in the offense, but it's by quite a wide margin, right? Like, De'Ami Brown is the field stretcher just to run routes against air and like stretch the defense out. They just traded for Tim Patrick for a bit of depth. And then, Brenton Strange, a possession tight end. Their running backs, they don't really know who their guy is. Like, it feels like this is a team also that had the second worst defense last year. They're going to have to score. They're going to have to win through offense. They're going to have to throw the ball. And a lot of the designed targets, yards after catch plays, they're going to be funneled through Travis Hunter. They also, spent their next year's first round pick to move up to select this guy with a clear plan on how to use him as their new Chris Godwin for this offense. So yeah, I feel like this is an obvious pick that people are just thinking about too much. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Just pick the really good football player. Then we have Ricky Pearsall, who's been a target of mine all offseason. He was, I think, an underrated prospect, and he's an underrated athlete. I'm going to continue to press on Ricky Pearsall, where he had elite vertical jump, elite 3-cone, even a very good 40, elite shuttle times. Like, he's an elite athlete. He can jump through the gym. He's extremely quick, and that showcases through his route running. If you've seen this guy run routes, he can separate. He can get open, right? The 49ers handpicked him, the best offensive coach in the NFL of this century, Kyle Shanahan, who was on the ESPN All-Century team as the offensive coordinator, picked this guy to play the position that Kyle Shanahan played at Texas. Like, he knows a thing or two about receivers, right? Like Andre Johnson, Julio Jones. You go through the list of guys, Ayuk, Debo, etc. Like, he has coached really good receivers. He has gotten them great seasons. And, like Ricky Pearsall is the next in line. And I'm not saying that Ricky Pearsall is going to break the NFL and he's going to be Jamar Chase, but he goes 86th in drafts, and right now, he's the clear number one receiver on the 49ers. Jawan Jennings has a contract dispute and an injury, or maybe just the contract dispute, but either way, right, he's got some iffiness, right? The Niners just signed MVS. They're looking to sign Kendrick Bourne because they're desperate at wide receiver. The only guy they trust, Brock Purdy trusts, is Ricky Pearsall, and they've been growing that chemistry through the preseason, through joint practices, through training camp. Right? It's George Kittle, it's Ricky Pearsall, it's CMC. It's going to be a very saturated, concentrated offense in this 49er group. So I just think he's going to have a lot of volume, especially early in the year. He's going to kickstart your season extremely well. When Ayuk comes back and Jennings is there, yeah, maybe he loses some steam. But it wouldn't surprise me if the guy that was a first-round pick was actually the number one receiver for 2025, considering one of them is coming back from injury, and the other, right, Jawan Jennings, he's been mostly a career receiver 3 and was kind of a receiver 1 out of necessity last year. So Ricky Pearsall is a breakout candidate. I would take him over Rome Odunze personally, a good value that I would reach for sure. Next, we have Emeka Egbuka, our final receiver in this video. Emeka Egbuka is a favorite of many. And he hasn't really necessarily, I'm not going to lie, been a favorite of mine, right? But I think that he's a receiver that the situation makes a ton of sense. There's going to be a lot of people that really want him. And I think in the range that he goes, he's worth reaching for by a round, right? He goes number 91 in drafts. But I think he's better than, and I think he has more potential than a number of receivers that go ahead of him. And he's in that range of receivers where it's like Jerry Jeudy, Stephon Diggs, Jacoby Myers, Debo Samuel, a bunch of veteran guys. You kind of know what they are. But if you're looking to win your league, if you're looking for upside, if you're shooting for the stars like I am, then Emeka Egbuka is the pick. I'd pick him over Debo, who goes 85th and he goes 91st. Debo is kind of washed. There's a reason why the Niners traded him away, and Ricky Pearsall was part of that, but there's a reason they traded him away. Emeka Egbuka right now, if Chris Godwin's out for 6 weeks, right, he's the clear number 2 receiver in Tampa Bay. Cade Otton's a bit banged up. McMillan's a bit banged up. What they really have in this offense right now is kind of like the Niners. Typically a really good, well-rounded room with a lot of depth that they want to get the ball to a bunch of playmakers. But right now it feels like it's Bucky Irving, it's Mike Evans, and it's Emeka Egbuka, who's been having a great training camp, who looks super smooth in the clips out of training camp. Preseason, he scored touchdowns. He's playing outside, he's playing inside, and it feels like he's the Chris Godwin, at least for now. And it wouldn't surprise me if he outproduced Chris Godwin this year, because Godwin is hurt and he's not going to be back in 100% probably the whole year. As much as I love Chris Godwin, he's one of my favorite NFL players. But Egbuka was comped to Chris Godwin. He's a similar player. He's physical. He's tough over the middle. He's really refined. He's a NFL-ready receiver. He's actually a little bit older. So Emeka Egbuka, just a really good pick for where he goes. Similarly to Ricky Pearsall, two players that people just don't know enough about. They don't know how actual, legitimate upside in the offense they have. 2 legitimate offenses with legitimate coordinators, with legitimate quarterbacks, well worth the pick and well worth the reach. Okay, now we're going to transition to the quarterback and tight end positions before we hit the running back position. We have Drake Maye, and Drake Maye, if you guys know me, of course, I'm going to bring up Drake Maye, but out of all the quarterbacks that you could reach for, honestly, I don't reach for quarterbacks very often. I'm not that type of guy. I'm typically just taking the value. If a guy falls and I like him, I'll take him, right? Oftentimes in the leagues that I play in, quarterbacks don't go early, right? I'm in a lot of big money leagues or sharper leagues, and typically people wait on the position. So typically I'm just able to pick up the player that I kind of want or in the range that I like them, right? But if there were a quarterback this year that I'd be willing to take ahead of 3 or 4 or 5 other consensus names, right? Drake Maye goes at pick 124 on consensus. Okay, he's quarterback 16. according to consensus. Last year, he was QB 14 on average, despite a terrible offensive line, the worst in the NFL, and probably the worst receiving core, and a first-year offensive play caller. Okay, this year he has Josh McDaniels. This year he has 4 new offensive linemen, including a 4th overall pick, including Morgan Moses, right? So it's a much better tackle position, a much better offensive line. This year he has Stephon Diggs. He didn't last year. This year he has Treveyon Henderson. Last year he didn't, right? This year he's year 2 instead of year 1, and he's playing the whole year. And this year he's going to get designed quarterback runs. Last year he led the NFL in yards per carry. He's a very good runner. He's very fast. I don't think people realize how athletic Drake Maye is. Plus, he's a creation specialist. I think he's as good as like anybody not named Allen, Mahomes, or Lamar when it comes to outside creation in terms of quarterback position. But Drake is going to explode this year. He's going to break out this year. The Patriots are a breakout candidate this year. Vegas has them potentially winning 11 games. I'd take him ahead of vanilla names like Jared Goff, like Justin Herbert. I'd take him over some interesting names, but I just think Maye is a better player. Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, okay? I think Drake Maye has more rushing upside than everybody not named Fields here. He has much more passing upside than Justin Fields. He's in a much better situation than Justin Fields. He's just a much better football player. Like, I could imagine Justin Fields getting benched. I don't want anything to do with him. Caleb Williams, I mean, Maye was a lot better as a rookie than Caleb Williams, just toe-to-toe, watch the film. And I think he has a lot more rushing appeal, too. And he goes later. But I would also just say, like, if there's anybody to take a risk on, to reach on, that has top 10, top 8 quarterback upside that isn't going there, it's Drake Maye. So that's why I pick him as the reach at this position. At tight end, Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts is kind of an obvious one, but he goes 101st. And I'd take him over Evan Ingram. I'd take him over David Njoku. I'd take him over Travis Kelce. These are all guys that typically go ahead of him via consensus. Now, the interesting thing about that is he goes higher on underdog, right? I think he's tight end 7 or 8 on underdog by now, which again goes to show, like, I like to bring up the underdog consensus or the underdog ADP because it's like maybe the sharpest platform there is in terms of like high stakes best ball leagues. And it's got a large volume. So you'll see the way that these ADPs move in comparison to the other sites. And Warren goes considerably higher there. Warren is a first-round tight end. He was a great prospect, right? He's a grown man. He's not young, really. He's great after the catch. We've seen him flash in the preseason. We've seen him play a ton in the preseason. They drafted him for a reason. With Daniel Jones, they're going to funnel yards after catch targets to him. And I like him in PPR formats because I think he's going to have a good amount of receptions, right? So I'm not buying into an older Evan Ingram, even if he's in a better offense, right? I'm not buying into the Cleveland Browns, even if I think Njoku is like the number 2 option in the receiving game there. And I'm not buying into old man Travis Kelce having to plan a wedding, right? I'm going to buy into the rookie after I just saw Brock Bowers go nuclear last year, right? After we've seen the last 2 years, Laporta and Bowers go crazy, Warren is a similar prospect. So to me, I think he has a great year as a rookie and has like a top 6, top 7 finish. If there's another tight end that I think could have a great year, it's Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft, I think the number 1 point for him would be, what if the number 1 target on the Packers is not actually a receiver? We've been waiting for Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Reed, and now Golden to be the number 1 receiver. But what if the best receiver on this team actually plays tight end? What if the guy that we reliably knows that plays every snap because he can block and he's great after the catch is Tucker Kraft, and the guy that will finish top 5, top 6, elite at his position is Tucker Kraft? What if the leading touchdown man on this team is Tucker Kraft? What if the best tight end last year after the catch in the NFL was Tucker Kraft, which he was? So I'm just looking at this player and I'm saying, like, he reminds me a lot of a younger George Kittle. I'm not saying he's quite as fast or quite as athletic, but he is in a similar offense. He's going to play a very large role. He really, Luke Musgrave is far in the background. Like, Kraft is easily the guy here. And I just feel like, especially in half PPR leagues, because I think, unlike Warren, Kraft is maybe a little bit less useful in full PPR just because, like, he does have so many other options that catch the ball. And I don't know if he'll truly be funneled to targets the way Warren is as a high-end first-round pick. But that being said, Christian Watson's injured, right? Dobbs has been in trade rumors. Reed is kind of banged up, right? So it's really a rookie early in the year, and Tucker Kraft with a little bit of Reed, but he's going to be working his way back. So really, at the beginning of the year, Kraft could go pretty crazy. But in my opinion, I take both these tight ends over the Ingram, the Njoku, the Kelsey. After that first 5 or 6 tight ends, those are my targets, and I'd be willing to reach for those guys to secure the position. Now let's finish off with the running back position. I have 5 names for you guys all throughout the draft. Let's begin with the guy that I probably will talk about in every video for the rest of time. That's Kenneth Walker. He goes as the pick 41. I have not invested in any running back this best ball season or this fantasy season more than Kenneth Walker, and he's a primary target for me because I think he is the absolute favorite for me to be a mid-round running back or like a 3rd, 4th round pick that is going to ascend to 1st round, 2nd round status next year. I think Kenneth Walker is easily one of the most talented runners in the NFL. Grading him coming out of college, he was one of my favorite running back prospects I've ever watched. He's only ascended in terms of his ability to be an effective receiver. Last year, right, he was setting career highs for targets, for receiving yards, for receptions, for all of it, and becoming a complete player. We've heard JSN speak about how Kenneth Walker's the engine of this offense. We know what Kubiak brings. He brings that Shanahan, right? He brings that running game, that zone stretch running game, and Walker's a perfect fit for it. Walker has the jump cuts. Walker has the quick feet. Walker has the explosiveness to get to the edge and to really hit home runs. Charbonnet is a good player, but he does not have the explosiveness and the twitch and the breaking ability of Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker could lead the NFL in rushing. He's really that good, I believe. So going 41st, the only reason he's going 41st is because he's injured. He's injury prone. He's not injured right now, but he's injury prone. That's the only reason. And if you want to win your fantasy leagues, I think Kenneth Walker is a huge home run pick. I'd take him over Kyren Williams straight up. Kyren Williams goes 26th overall. Kenneth Walker goes 41st, right? I'd take Kenneth Walker in the 3rd round without any hesitation. I'd take him over Tyreek Hill, who goes 33rd in your drafts as a opposing player early in drafts. I'd take him over Tyreek Hill. I'd take him over Kyren Williams. So I'd take him certainly over Breece Hall. So Kenneth Walker, I think, will have a top 10 season at the position, and he does have top 5 upside. Next, we have Treveyon Henderson of my Patriots. We talked about Drake Maye. Treveyon Henderson is on here because he is a true potential league-winning player. And it really comes down to the talent. And an offense and an infrastructure that, trust me as a Patriots fan, needs a infusion of explosiveness. Like, we have needed that for years. And Treveyon Henderson goes 49th in drafts. I mean, I wouldn't even blink twice. I'd take him over Alvin Kamara, who goes 41st on consensus. Right? Henderson more so goes around 41st on a platform like Underdog, which typically is lower on running backs. But a player like Henderson, because of the best ball format, he's a bit of a home run player, right? Like, he from day one, you're going to watch him and you're going to realize from day one, he's a top 10 most explosive NFL running back. Like, he showcased that on his first touch in the NFL. He showcased that on his kick return for a touchdown, right? He's going to be a really good receiver. And why I like him so much is his tape was flawless as a pass blocker. He's already the best pass blocker on the team, and he's a rookie. He's the best pass catcher on the team, and he's a rookie. He's the most explosive runner on the team, and he's a rookie, right? Ramondre Stevenson will factor in. He'll play the power back role, and I honestly think Stevenson's a bit of a value as well, because Josh McDaniels likes to split carries, and that's the only concern with Henderson. But when your team is dying for explosiveness, and you know this role, Kevin Falk, right? Shane Vereen, James White, Danny Woodhead, these receiving backs have produced in the New England offense. Now imagine if those players got more runs, more carries. We've seen James White be like a honestly almost RB1 in fantasy before, in PPR. So Henderson is a home run in PPR. A little bit less so towards standard because it takes away the effectiveness of his receiving. But man, I mean, this guy could win you your league. Like, that's the type of pick you want to make instead of a vanilla, no upside Alvin Kamara selection. Next, Tyrone Tracy, who goes much later, 68th, according to ADP. I would take him straight up over a DeAndre Swift. 68th might, or that's not correct. Sorry. Tyrone Tracy, my bad, goes 84th. I was looking at a different player, but would I still take him over DeAndre Swift? I probably would, to be honest. I don't want DeAndre Swift this year, but I would take him over David Montgomery, who goes 62nd. Tyrone Tracy goes 84th. So that's a difference of 22 selections, according to ADP. I've said this before. I made a previous video on the Bottom Line View talking about Tracy, and I just don't understand why people are so low on Tyrone Tracy. Last year he played, and he played well. He played behind a terrible offensive line with no quarterbacks. This year, the quarterbacks are better. The offensive line already looks better, and Andrew Thomas is healthy. And Tracy is explosive. He can catch the ball. He's got good size. If you've watched Cam Scattaboo, you would understand in the preseason that he looked really slow. And there's a lot of people that are high on him, and I just don't get it. Like, yeah, his college production was great, but that doesn't matter to me as much as what my eyes tell me. And what my eyes tell me is that Tracy can play on all three downs. He's explosive. He can hit home runs. And as a lead ball carrier that can play in all situations, I'd much rather have that than a first and second down plug in David Montgomery. I'd much rather swing for the fences with Tyrone Tracy here, who I think is a solid floor of an RB2 and has a much higher ceiling than somebody like David Montgomery. So the next running back is honestly at this point just underappreciated. That's Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. Tony Pollard goes off the board 68th overall. And now that we know Tyjae Spears is officially going to be missing the first few weeks of the NFL season, Tony Pollard is the clear lead back behind one of the most improved offensive lines in the NFL and a very much improved quarterback position. The Tennessee Titans just named their young quarterback Cam Ward the captain, or one of the captains of their offense and team. That means something to me in terms of there's a lot of faith that this guy is not only a leader, but he's going to be pretty good at football. The offensive line, Kevin Zeitler, really good guard from Detroit last year, top 5 in PFF grade, okay? They also have an ascending J.C. Latham who moves from the left to the right, former first-round pick, back to his spot where he played in college. And they have a first-round pick, Peter Skoronski. It's the second year of this offensive line tutelage under Callahan. I think this is going to be a good offensive line when it comes to running the football and moving people, okay? Tony Pollard is going to get a ton of touches, 20-plus touches a game early in the year. He got a ton of work last year. The problem with Tony Pollard was touchdowns because the offense was so poor. But imagine if Cam Ward raises the ceiling of this offense. I think that's very realistic. I think Calvin Ridley looks like a better player this year than he did last year. That could help the offense, right? And Spears being out for a little while, I mean, sure, when he comes back, he's a change of pace. But this is clearly Tony Pollard's backfield, and he's being drafted as if he's in like some sort of split, like some sort of timeshare, some sort of RB whatever running back by committee, right? Like, I don't see it. Like, he's a workhorse, and he's a guy that used to be a favorite of fantasy footballers out there. And because he went to Tennessee or because he got hurt one year, like they no longer treat him with that respect. He was a value last year. He's a value this year. I would take him straight up over names like DeAndre Swift, names like David Montgomery. I think he's like a really solid RB2. I think he's even like, you could go as far as saying, if you start like wide receiver heavy, if you run like a zero RB approach, I think I wouldn't even mind Tony Pollard as my RB1 because I just know he's going to get a ton of work, and I know he's a pretty good player in what is an ascending offense. So Tony Pollard is really sneaky this year. And then Jacory, Croskey, Merritt is going to be the final running back in this video. He had to be mentioned because you have to reach for him if you want him, because his ADP is not going to align with where he should be drafted. The ADP is totally out of whack when it comes to Bill, is what they call him. And let's just be honest, like, the Commanders basically did the thing. They traded Brian Robinson. They went all in on their late draft pick running back that had very little college experience in that final season, has one of the wackiest stories I've ever heard for a day one rookie starting running back. But he was so good in training camp. He was so good in practice. He was so electric from the standpoint of some of the best, like, run game offensive coaches in football. Cliff Kingsbury, the OC, and Anthony Lynn, the running back coach, who's a really good running back coach. They looked at this guy and said, he's our guy. Like, let's move on from Brian Robinson. Austin Eckler's old. Sure, he's going to factor in as a pass catcher. Sure, Rodriguez is on the roster. But they don't trade Brian Robinson if this guy is not going to get the exact same role that Robinson was going to get. So wherever you were drafting Robinson in a really good offense that had a good run game last year, you should be drafting Bill. Even with maybe more upside. He could be a better player. He's quick. He's elusive. I've seen him. I mean, so I would draft him over a guy like Jordan Mason personally. I think Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones is an interesting situation where I actually prefer Aaron Jones. I think they're both fairly similar here. Like, I think this is a similar discussion. So around 100, around 99, around 95, in the 90s, I'd be willing to go for it. I've even seen him drafted in the 8th, 7th round. So in an offense, in a situation like Washington, tied to Jaden Daniels, tied to Terry McLaurin, tied to Cliff Kingsbury, this guy could be a league winner. So he's definitely worth reaching for near the end of your drafts, but it's going to have to be sooner than the very end. Don't listen to ADP when it comes to Bill. So those are the players that I am willing to reach for in my drafts, and I think you should reach for in your drafts. Let me know if I forgot anyone, if there's a player that you would reach for, and let me know if you have a question. All right, I'll definitely answer in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe for a lot more fantasy and NFL betting content here on the new channel, Money Mitch. Peace.